Hello, and welcome to the Yolo County District Attorney's podcast series, The Chronicles of Justice. Today we will be discussing the LGBTQIA community and Pride Month. We will be speaking with Gloria Partida, co-chair of the Davis-Phoenix Coalition, Chief Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Raven, and Julia Hernandez, social worker and victim advocate at the Yolo County District Attorney's Office. Okay, we'll start with you, Gloria. Can you tell us how you first came in contact with the Yolo County District Attorney's Office?
Sure. About 3 years ago, my son, who is gay, was involved in a hate crime, and it was a pretty brutal beating that he suffered. So that was how we were introduced to the DA's office, and it was a pretty traumatic period in our lives, not just for my son, Mikey, but for our entire family. When we have to deal with any agencies outside of our family, and we have, because we are part of the LGBTQIA community, you never know what those interactions are going to be like. And so we were pretty nervous, on top of already being traumatized by the experience. And so we were nervous about how we were going to, how our interactions with the police department were going to be, and then how interactions with the district attorney's office was going to be. But they turned out to be very positive, and we felt very validated in asking for there to be a hate crime enhancement. And even though it was really difficult to get a hate crime enhancement and to prove that there was a hate crime committed, it was important. It was important for my son because he felt like it was the only way that he could fight back.
That's great. Okay, can you explain to us some of the ways that you're helping bring acceptance and awareness about the LGBTQIA community?
Sure. So after the trial, we felt that there had to be something that was done that was more lasting. So we formed a nonprofit to bring awareness around hate crimes and inclusion. And our mission is the prevention of hate-motivated violence. And the way that we do that is to try to build inclusive communities. And that is not just for the LGBTQIA community, but also for any communities that are sort of on the fringe. And so some of the things that we address are bullying in the K through 12. We try to raise awareness around that. We had last year a very successful anti-bullying fair called an Upstander Carnival, where we tried to give resources to children on what to do when they see bullying happen, and so that they are not just bystanders, they're upstanders. We had a forum with the DA's office last year, just before we had our Pride Festival. So we started having a Pride Festival in Davis. There had been one previously. It'd been like 10 years since the last one, and so our organization started having a Pride Festival in town. We also screened a filming of a documentary about the hate crime that happened with my son, and we host a support group for parents of children who are gender nonconforming, and that has been very successful because we have there are a lot of kids in elementary school who are now not identifying as their biological gender or who are gender creative. And I think parents are much more accepting of that now, but they have no way to there are no resources because it's such a new area. So they rely on each other for support. There have been parents who are separated where the father wants to take the child out of the house because the mom is allowing him to dress as a girl, for instance. And so these are parents who just don't know how to navigate a new area.
Okay, Gloria, how can community members get a hold of you to take advantage of some of these services?
So we have a website, which is davisphoenixco.org. We also have a Facebook page, which is listed under the Davis Phoenix Coalition. We have email, which is davisphoenixco@gmail.com. And you can also call 530-304-0548.
Okay, and another question I wanted to ask is, you mentioned some events, annual events. So the Pride event will take place. What month does it always take place? In the month of June?
Actually, we start our Pride event happens the third Sunday in May, and we are trying not to conflict with the other Pride events that are happening in our area.
Okay, and the anti-bullying?
The anti-bullying fair is in October. October is the official anti-bullying month, and we haven't decided a date for that event yet.
Okay, so next we're going to go to you, Jonathan. The Yolo County District Attorney's Office takes crimes targeting the LGBTQIA community very seriously and considers these to be hate crimes. How are hate crimes different than other crimes?
Wendy, hate crimes are not normal crimes targeted at individuals. Hate crimes are message crimes targeted not only at that individual who gets traumatized and injured, but at the whole community. So when there is a hate crime, the trauma and injuries are not only suffered by the direct victim, but the community as a whole. And these crimes instill fear in those community members. And because of that, the law is different in the way it addresses hate crimes. Hate crimes can have enhancements. The typical, let's say, a battery crime or another type of crime can have an enhancement, or there can be a particular crime that is a hate crime. The penalties are stiffer, as they should be. And at our office, Yolo County DA, we take these very, very seriously, as you just said. And it's important to us, as Gloria had mentioned, that if it is in fact a hate crime, we want that hate crime to be part of either a jury verdict and a sentence or a plea bargain. And in the case involving Mikey, as Gloria mentioned, that was important to Gloria, but that was also important to our office. So we did, in fact, get that hate crime enhancement on the crime against Mikey.
Okay, and Julia, how did you help Gloria's son when he was the victim of a hate crime?
I was fortunate enough to meet Mikey. First, I called the phone number, of course, that was given to me, and then I think I spoke to Gloria first. And I didn't know how Mikey was doing at that time because he had been in the hospital. And I think just fortunate, I didn't even know, if he would be alive after what had happened. But she told me yes, that I would be able to speak to him at some point. And going through everything, being with Mikey and Gloria and the rest of the family, they were always so gracious and wonderful. I always felt honored to be their advocate. Talking for Mikey from the beginning and Gloria, taking them through the court process. So people don't always know what it is to go through a court process. One, they're coming into a situation that's brand new, meaning having been assaulted, having been traumatized, not even having been down that road before, and then having to go into a court process where you don't know legal stuff. You don't know, unless you live it day in, day out. You don't know what's going to happen next. And so our job as victim advocates, Jonathan Raven was the prosecutor. He had a role, he was prosecuting the case, but my job is to try to clarify everything with the family, explain to them what's going on. Jonathan's doing that as we're going along. He's wonderful. All the DAs are explaining things to victims as they go along. But in case there's ever any extra questions or as they're in court doing their job, I can be sitting with the client in the audience and explaining things as it's also happening. So any questions, and you're going from the time when the person comes for the arraignment in the court process all the way to the end, to the sentencing. And we did get to a sentencing, and at the end when Mikey was able to do what's called a victim impact statement, to say, hey, this is how the crime had affected me and Gloria, and anyone else from the family was able to do that. Mikey decided that he was not he wrote something, but I was able to read that for him so that he didn't have to do that himself if he didn't want to, and he chose not to at the end, and I was able to speak that for him.
Okay, Julia, and can you tell us what are some of the specific services that the Victim Services Division offers to victims of crime?
To all victims of any types of crime, we're helping them explain the court process, explain what their rights are. Through the California Constitution, there is something called Marcy's Law, and so it grants victims of crime 17 or 18 certain rights. And so we're letting them know what that is. We're telling those victims, hey, let us know if we're not doing something that's on that list of your rights. Let us know if that's something that you want to take advantage of. We're going with them to court. If they have to testify, we get to sit by them on the stand if they want us to. They don't have to have that happen. But sometimes it's easier so that if they're being questioned, then we're able to be sitting next to them and not have all eyes just be on them. And we're able to help them apply for certain other things that they may be eligible for, like the Victim Compensation Program. In this case, Mikey did apply for that. He was able to have maybe some medical bills be paid for and income loss items, which is huge when you're dealing with not being able to work for a certain period of time. No victim of a crime should be able to have those costs have to be something that comes out of their pocket. They should be able to be compensated for that because, but through someone else's, doings, they were a victim of a crime. So through no fault of their own. And again, walking someone through a sentencing, because that can be the one time that they get to have a voice. They get to say to the offender and to everyone in the courtroom, hey, this is how this impacted me. Whether or not an offender hears the impact is not hopefully that is the purpose. Hopefully they get some of it, but it's more for the victim to have some sense of, I don't like the word closure, but for themselves to at least have said it outward to someone else and, get that, okay, I can be done with that portion of this trial, of this case, and moving forward from there.
Now, Jonathan, how is the Yolo County District Attorney's Office helping to bring awareness to these issues in our community?
For Yolo County District Attorney Jeff Reisig, these issues are extremely important, and we put a great deal of emphasis and focus on them and bringing light to the community, not only in reactively prosecuting these cases, but also in trying to do what we can to play the role that we are able to help the community in these areas. And one area that we set up a program is called the Multicultural Community Council, or the MCCC. And the MCCC is a group of community leaders from all the different groups, and we meet regularly once a month as a community. We're very, very proactive in terms of what we do. We put on forums, and then we also address issues. So if there's an issue in the community, let's just say with the LGBTQIA community, someone like Gloria, who is on the multicultural community, could come to us and sort of be a liaison with that community and talk to us about whatever that issue is or what that crime, and then she can go back and speak to the community. Because at times, some of these communities are, as Gloria said earlier, they're a little unsure and they're not used to being in this environment, and they're kind of wondering what's going to happen. And to have someone as a liaison for us is very, very helpful. Gloria is one of our most engaged and active members, and we've as she said, we sponsored an event with her, a forum, and I thought maybe I would ask her, what type of events and are you seeing the MCC do since you've been on it?
Since I have been on the Multicultural Community Council, we've done as I've mentioned, the LGBTQIA forum, where we had several members of the community discuss how communities can build more inclusive relationships. So we also have a Justice Awards Leadership Luncheon, which is focused on recognizing individuals or organizations who promote multicultural relationships, acceptance, and peace in our community. I wanted to add that I think it was really great after the trial and after we started the coalition, and our organization has had 2 Pride events, and part of that event is a run at the beginning of the event. And the reason for that is because Mikey was a long distance runner. And after he was attacked, he couldn't even walk. And so he was really worried about whether or not he was going to be able to run. And so we always start the Pride Festival with a run. And Jonathan and Julia ran with him both years. And it was really special for him to be able to run with them. And I also felt it was sort of symbolic that they started and finished with him.
Yes, that's great. I want to thank you, Gloria, especially for joining us today, Jonathan and Julia as well. I think there's a lot more to be learned here, and we really thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, folks, for tuning in today. Our goal is that we will continually seek to develop an inclusive community. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or for more information, you can go to yoloda.org.